Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today's episode, I have been thinking a lot about inferiority complexes. Who gives them? Who provides them? Can we take it away? And can it ever be something that we rearrange in our minds to empower us? And I'm sitting here working on this article, and I'm writing about immigrants and just some very interesting insights that I found while working with immigrants. And I was last night I was researching some of Thomas Sachs' work, and he is a Hungarian psychiatrist, and he actually got his MD at the University of Cincinnati. So I just thought it was really cool that I found his work. I'm not really sure how I found myself studying some of Thomas's Sachs's work. I think I was more so curious about schizophrenia at the time, and I just kind of I do this thing where it's like if I'm curious about something, if I'm passionate about something, I will just kind of like allow myself to follow that. And so that's how I found some of his work. He's made some pretty cool insights. And I think one thing that has really inspired me from Thomas's Sash work, which this video is pretty cool because obviously him being Hungarian and I'm talking about immigrants, I'm writing about immigrants. I just kind of feel like that all just kind of tied in together. And so that's kind of been my train of thought and as I'm talking about this in this video. But I was just thinking about his work, and I was thinking about how he worked within psychiatry, and he critiqued it so heavily. And I was thinking about this too. I kind of want to insert here really quickly um, how I've reframed my mindset in regards to criticism. So I've had people comment some really nasty things on my work. Like I had someone almost like attack my character. And I feel like one thing I've learned about people and like criticism is that criticism is a very interesting way of saying that I actually love what it is that you do. And I find it noteworthy to the extent of I'm going to critique it because I low key want you to get better at this. And my backing of this was the James Baldwin quote when he talks about America, right? How he loves America. And, that's why he must critique her, right? Like, let me actually pull up the quote verbatim because that was like such an aha moment for me. And that's why I feel like when it comes to criticism, especially as we're living in a time such as today where a lot of people are becoming very critical, but not to better anybody or not to better things, but more so just because they really admire the work that so many of us do. People who have platforms, people who have done things within the world and who have shared those gifts with the world, they really admire that. So I think a lot of people are becoming more and more critical because they admire the fact that you have courage and that you're out doing things in the world. So anyway, the James Baldwin quote goes, "I love America more than any other country in this world. And exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually." And so I had this aha moment last night as I was reading the work of Thomas Sachs. And I'm like, man, it's so crazy. He's in psychiatry and like he's constantly criticizing the psychiatric practices. And I found this for myself. I was like, being a writer, I had some slight insecurities. I was like, I feel like I am very critical, and I was like, maybe this is making me cynical to an extent. But I think the work of critical analysis, analytical abilities, and the ability to effectively critique something can actually be very transformative. And so Thomas Sachs' work is his some of his most prominent work is the myth of mental illness, and essentially he just kind of talks about our rites of passage and how for a lot of people they submit to medical practices because they don't want to take responsibility for their lives. And so he really premises on like the practices that were going on within the mental health institutions in the 1970s, how a lot of people were kind of being abducted in a sense into these medical practices for kind of like clientele, honestly, which I thought was really, really interesting. I think one thing that's always so unfortunate about history, of course, is that a lot of times it does negate African Americans. And so one thing that really came to mind was the crap epidemic and, things like that that were popping off within our communities during that time frame. And I just was thinking about, how we didn't receive any help. And so I think one thing that and this is why I'm talking about this with immigrants, is that for African Americans, we are left out of so much, right? Like if we're not present within our communities, if we're not documented this information, nobody's going to know. Like, and I can't even really say that jokingly. Like, honestly, it's something that really infuriates me. You know what I mean? I think it's so unfortunate how for African Americans, we are left out of everything, right? I have the book Colorization by William Haygood, and a great novel about film and cinematography as it pertains to African Americans, and just how like so much of what we've done, it's like it almost doesn't exist. And I think it's so crazy for a lot of people to kind of sit in a space and really be like, wow, we really don't learn anything about African Americans. And I think it's almost like you can't even fathom that. Like nobody can really sit and fathom the intentionality that goes into keeping Black people in a state of perpetual inferiority. And one thing that Thomas Sass Alsho said was, because I was questioning this too, right? And this is one thing I really do believe in the Bible, that Bible verse that says, "Seek and ye shall find." Because when I tell y'all, I'll be finding answers. I'll be finding answers. But he just was talking about how. So my question, I started to notice something that was very common within the Black community, especially as it pertains to our relationship with media and our relationship with entertainers, and how for so many of us we were willing to go to extremities to kind of obtain some level of fame today. And so I was thinking like, what is it about African Americans that just make us bet it all for a little bit of fame? And I realized by reading Thomas Sachs' book, just keeping that question in the back of my mind, the answer came forward, and he talked about it from a more psychological standpoint. He said that people who have inferiority complexes are more prone to desire positions in authority, or you know what I mean, some type of social status. And obviously I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially is saying that people who have inferiority complexes are more likely to develop a desire to be better than others. And I started thinking about this inferiority complex within my own life. I said, who gave it to me? Where did it come from? And obviously I was able to identify that source. But when I started looking at this person's life and how that was projected onto me, I started to see all the ways in which, if you go back and you study history, what's happening at this time, right, in history, what is taking place, right? What is going on within the Black community at this time, right? We know that at this point it's prison to pipeline, you know what I mean? Like mass incarceration, you know what I mean? So it's like when you start thinking about that, you start thinking about just all of the cruelty and the heinous crimes that were going on, all of the injustices that were going on within the Black community at the time in which these inferiority complexes were then adopted and adjusted, then it makes sense as to why that can become something that's a little bit more perpetual. So I just always encourage us to really think critically and really think long and hard and try to connect the dots, because when it comes to African American history, when it comes to the lives of African Americans, unfortunately for us, there are a lot of missing pieces. Like there's a lot of missing pieces. I mean, you can take any subject, whether it be art, sciences, right? I just watched something that the Lord did, and I really wanted to do a film review on it. I didn't get a chance to get around to it. And I was even thinking about this too. We talk about time management, we talk about things like that, and just how for so many African Americans, being the laborers in this country, there's always an expectancy for us to give to other people and for other people to essentially benefit off the backs of us. So in a lot of ways, the time for Black people is oftentimes indebted to paying debts or laboring. So we don't ever really have the time to kind of like do the things that we want to do. And I think that's kind of why we are suffering in terms of like health and things like that. Like it's a whole thing. I haven't really found a lot of research on that. That's another question that's on the bulletin board that has to get answered. I just thought I'd throw it out there because that's something that I've also been looking into as well, as to why we struggle to gain the skill sets that we need to run a successful business. So another article that's going to be coming out, and you're listening to me and you're intrigued, right? And I'm intrigued and I love what I do. And it's just like trying to find the time to do it. You know what I mean? Like I'm on my lunch break, you know what I mean? And I'm making it happen. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think there's always this thing too with immigrants and a lot of people who take on these really negative attitudes about African Americans, and this beliefs that we're lazy. And it's like, you have no idea, and it's so crazy because I think if anybody works hard, it's like, you know what I mean? The people who built the country, I would think that but anyway, that's not to get sidetracked. Kind of just dialing back and bringing it back to what I was just saying. I low key lost my train of thought, but yeah, overall, the inferiority complex is something that is passed down, and it's really hard to get away from that. When you start thinking about the ways in which Black people are treated in America, for the way that they look, it's hard. You know what I mean? It's really hard to kind of navigate those waters. You have to be someone who's financially literate and be a good steward over the little that you do have, while simultaneously making sure that you maintain yourself. You know what I mean? Because when you don't have certain things, you're not granted certain things, right? We know fashion is very political. That's why a lot of people are really big on the name brands. It's not just a matter of, oh, I like this brand, or, oh, I'm, negligent to this brand's, lack of ethics. It has nothing to do with that. It's the mere fact that this is social capital. And that's the one thing we've been deprived of. It's really hard to get yourself out of those negative stereotypes when it's something that everybody perpetuates, whether it's a conscious or a subconscious thing, So education will always be the answer. This is just a quick little vid because I haven't uploaded anything on my YouTube channel. So I just kind of wanted to come on and share some thoughts on my lunch break. Got to make it do what it do. And so, yeah, definitely check out my website, jalenleslie.com. You guys can go buy my book Season. I just did a restock. So definitely support your girl. It's a really good book. I put in my time, my blood, sweat, and tears into that. So you're definitely going to be very pleased with that revelation. It's a poetic contemplation of my life, my journey to achieving my dreams as a writer. You see the books, you see the work that's been put in. So yeah, thanks. Oh, check the fit too, because get into the fit. Don't. What? Black girl cake? Who? What? Okay.